It should please you to stay with me until a month from now. A month? Do you wish me to stay so long? I will take no refusal. I'm Liam, he's Rob, and for the second part of our October season of Halloween podcast, we are taking a look back at Francis Ford Coppola's wonderfully lavish gothic romance 1992's Bram Stoker's Dracula. Equal parts brilliant and quite terrible, Bram Stoker's Dracula sits comfortably alongside the likes of Ridley Scott's House of Gucci and Taylor Hackford's The Devil's Advocate as a movie that feels quite beyond objective criticism. Is it actually good? Honestly, after all these years and God knows how many viewings, I'm still not sure. But for all its undoubted faults, this remains an eminently watchable movie, as much for what does work as what doesn't. Is Keanu Reeves actively bad as Jonathan Harker? Absolutely. Do I still enjoy his performance? Yes, I do. Francis Ford Coppola's extravagant take on the source material ultimately remains a contradiction unto itself. But that's coming from somebody who's seen this movie many, many times. Rob, though, I believe this was your first time with this utterly insane cinematic experience.
Yes, it was my first time, and oh boy, I mean, I don't know where to start. I'm gonna start with, as you've already said, it is both terrible
Mhm.
and oddly mesmerizing. No,
I
it's not
think that's,
terrible.
yeah.
It's boring and oddly mesmerizing. Like
Mhm.
the slow pacing, that deliberate operatic rhythm, it just very sluggish. The middle act fucking lingers for me, and I mate the romance. I'm not all for the romance.
You're
Like
not
and
buying into it?
turning Winona Ryder's friend into Lady Gaga just seemed weird to me as well. It just I don't know. I just couldn't get on with that side of it. When I say mesmerizing, Oldman's Dracula, I
Mhm.
see why everybody raves about Oldman being Dracula. Like the guy kind of sets the stage for it when he's old Dracula, when he's I don't know Lothario Dracula in daylight, which fucking freaks me out, but okay.
Which is actually accurate to the book.
Yeah,
The movie actually has actually makes quite a few changes from the book. One of them being one of your issues with it is the fact that the love story isn't present in the book.
yeah,
It's
and that's
taken almost directly from the Mummy of all things.
yeah.
But the
Well, sorry,
whole
that's where I was.
oh sorry, I was just going
Sorry,
to say
that's
the whole him living being because I was just like, wait, have they just changed that for the movie? No, it's actually in the book, and it's just obviously later adaptations have established the whole idea that they can't survive in sunlight. And now, of course, you go back to the source material, like, well, this seems weird, but
mm,
hey, we get the
sorry.
top hat.
Yeah, that's where I was getting. So, aside from some liberties, it is a pretty much faithful adaptation of the book of the source
Mhm.
material. That's what I was getting at. Uh, there are liberties, as you've already said, but it does like retain the structure, the Victorian setting, obviously,
Mhm.
and the visual artistry, like the use of practical effects. I've always said through 200 and odd episodes of this podcast, I'm a big fan of practical over CGI, as
Oh
you
yeah,
are
yeah.
as well. I know that.
Mhm.
So the use of practical effects, the lighting, the lavish costumes, the whole gothic atmosphere, I'm a big fan of. I found it quite hypnotic,
Mhm.
but I couldn't get over that weird soap opera-esque style of the film in
Mhm. Mhm.
regards to it moved by so quickly and just the narrative plot just seemed to be all over the shop, and nobody seemed to just sit down and explain what was going on. All of a sudden, fucking Van Helsing is giving a blood transfusion to Lady Gaga, but at the same time having dinner with Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves. But also,
Yeah, that
they've
seems
just
insane.
gotten they've just gotten married, but she was just nearly fucking Dracula. But a letter bro and Keanu Reeves' hair is grey. I thought I fell asleep.
No, it's a lot, and I do actually agree with. I mean, I'm quite forgiving of a lot of this films, or at least I thought I was. But even when I said at the top of the podcast, like I've seen this film loads of times. To be more accurate, what I've actually done is I've seen the first half of this movie hundreds of times, and there's a
Okay.
good reason for that because I love the opening like it isn't no part of this movie is without fault. Make no mistake. I'm just willing to overlook it because the highs are so high, even if the lows are so low, and which is very true
Yeah.
of the performances. I'm not sure if there's any other movie I can think of where there's such a disparity between the fantastic performances, i.e., Gary Oldman being the obvious one, and say Keanu Reeves. And it's bizarre because most of the scenes with those two on screen are with each other. So you're
Yeah.
getting this fantastic performance from Gary Oldman and this really stilted, almost AI-esque performance from Keanu Reeves. And I love Keanu Reeves. Like I've always defended his performances because even when he's not great, he's got like a unique way of carrying himself. And I think he holds the screen very well. His accent and performance in this film is very, very difficult to defend, and to the point where I'm just not even going to bother. But
Oh
most
no.
of the time, when he's on screen, he's at least on screen with Gary Oldman, who is absolutely enigmatic and fantastic in this film. But
Isn't it
yeah, there's two sides to that coin at any given moment.
isn't it weird with Keanu Reeves' performance as well? I mean, the portrayal of Jonathan Harker,
Mhm.
it's flat and feels emotionally disengaged. And
Yeah.
what is weird as well, it can really drag down key scenes. Like
Mhm.
scenes that are meant to build this film up just feel, as I said, dragged down or don't feel as important because Keanu Reeves seems to be in a parody of a Dracula film, not a Dracula film itself. It's really, really odd. The other thing
Yeah,
that this film
the
gave me
tone is
that,
massively
yeah,
inconsistent in that regard.
the other thing that this film gave me that I'm a big fan of
Mhm.
is I didn't know at the time is Monica Bellucci and her toplessness as it coming from a crass
Yeah,
male.
you are jumping around the film
Yeah,
now, but it's hard not to at least mention Monica Bellucci, and I don't think she was particularly famous before this. I mean,
no,
I couldn't name the other two brides of Dracula in this movie, and
you
there
could
is a
or
reason.
couldn't. Did you say?
No, I couldn't.
Oh,
But of
okay.
course, the first one and the one that has the greatest emphasis on her is without question Monica Bellucci. And it reminds you, of course, she's topless, and you're just like, well, she might be one of the most beautiful women who's ever existed. Like she is that level of beautiful. You
Yeah,
can see why she was put in this film, and everyone's just gone, we've got to get her in our movie. She is unbelievable to the point where yes, he's locked away in a castle in Transylvania. Yes, he's having his blood sucked, all that jazz. But there's a part of you where just like, man, if I was in his position, I might just ride this out. I might just ride this out, man. She is that, yet sure, they eat babies occasionally. That isn't ideal for any relationship. But have you seen Monica Bellucci? I'm willing to roll the dice, man.
came out of nowhere. Like again, we jumped the gun, but I already did that, so that's fine. They they're sucking his blood. They've ripped his top, or his top was already open, and blah 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 yada yada yada. And all of a sudden, he's like, "Hang on, no, this guy's mine. Here, have a baby." Like,
Well,
what?
he's got to feed the brides of Dracula. Again, this is all alluded to in great detail. Well, not just alluded to, described in great detail in the book.
Yeah,
And of course, a lot of, if we remove the kind of inconsistent performances, one of the greatest issues with this adaptation is that it's beholden as a literary adaptation. There's just no
yeah,
escaping it. And what happens is, he's unwilling to give up certain narrative strands and characters in the name of a kind of leaner script, as it were, and leaner kind of, movie narrative. So I think the part of the movie that pays the greatest price for this is without question the second half. So he's leaned into the first half of the movie, the introduction of Dracula's castle, obviously Gary Oldman in his interactions with Jonathan Harker. That I think of as being not only the crux of the movie, but when people think of this movie, really what they're thinking of is that sequence. And I say the first half, it's probably not quite the first half, but you know what I mean. And that sequence, again, despite its faults, is absolutely fantastic. It's the height. We mentioned the fact that the filmmaking here is opulent, operatic, old-fashioned filmmaking. All the effects are in camera. Gives like the movie a distinctly timeless nature that I think few movies have. If you put this on and you didn't know any better, and if you didn't know the stars, you'd be like, when was this made? I have no fucking idea. And
no,
I love the fact that Francis Ford Coppola, I mean, saying the whole idea that they don't make him like this anymore, they really don't. They literally shot all the physical effects like they were basically magic tricks on set. There was hardly any post-production, and his greatest inspiration was what's his name, Georges Méliès. I'm pretty sure he's a French director, and he was a turn of the century director who you would know most famously from Trip to the Moon, The Extraordinary Voyage. Think of the
oh yeah, definitely know those two. Absolutely.
no, you'll know the work. It's the face on the moon. Smashing Pumpkins, Tonight, the music
Yeah, yeah.
video
Okay, yeah.
paid homage
Speak
to
my
it.
language. That's fine.
Yeah, it's got, put it this way, even if you don't know the name and you don't know the name of the films, if you saw the aesthetic, you would know it immediately. It's become part of kind of popular culture to a certain extent. And he's basically said, it's like, well, I'm only, everything you see on screen could have theoretically been done if this was filmed in 1906.
Yeah,
And it lends itself so well to giving the movie that timeless nature.
none more so. And you said magic trick, which was a great word for it. None more so than when they go up against Dracula at one point and he becomes Shadow and then becomes Dracula made of rats.
Yes,
Fucking
yeah,
hell, that was mad, like magic. That I
it
saw that. I
really
thought that
is.
was so good. That was so. The other thing that I had about this film that I thought was a bit odd. They are the three weirdest suitors I've ever seen for a 19-year-old woman's affection. You've
You
got
mean Jack Quincy and Arthur? They're
Jack Quincy
absolutely
and Arthur.
fantastic.
Like you've got the Princess Bride, you've got
Mhm.
Withnail, and you've got the Rocketeer. Three weird suitors I've ever
But
seen.
it really is quite broadly comedic, that whole section. Like, wow, Miss Lucy, you are as fresh as a summer rain. It's like
Mm.
it's broadly comedic, and it's again
Comed-
tonally inconsistent with the
Comedic.
rest of the film.
Let me see it. Let me see it. Wow, it's so big. And she pulls out his crocodile Dundee Bowie knife. Like fucking.
Yeah. I mean, this film is a horny goddamn film. Like, I was
Oh,
trying to think,
did
is
she
this
get
like?
raped by a werewolf, by the way?
Of course, you got raped by a werewolf,
Okay, yeah. And the
which is
werewolf was Dracula. When did Dracula be able to become a werewolf? Is that the source material as well?
Yeah, he can become. Well, that's the thing. He turns into a rat. He turns into a bat. He turns into a wolf. He turns into smoke. Yeah, that's the only difference with not being in the day, for instance, is that he can't turn into animals anymore. So he can survive in sunlight, but his powers are hugely decreased. So that's why he's constantly feeding on Lucy in that part of the film. I mean, I'm not sure why he has to rape her at one point, but that's just the fact that this is a very, very horny movie. I was sure, like, is it the? I was convinced like this is definitely the horniest vampire movie, and vampire movies inherently are horny. But then I
Yeah.
remembered I went to see Thirst at the cinema, which is a vampire movie by Park Chan Wook, a Korean one, where the priest gets infected with vampirism, and basically it just makes him horny as fuck. And that film is like 3 hours long of just a horny priest wanting to fuck everyone because he's infected with vampirism. I'm like, no, that's the horniest goddamn vampire movie. You get stuff like Twilight is kind of horny, but it has none of the sex. It's kind of like, I don't know, a Mormon version of sexy. It's really bizarre. Whereas this, everybody wants to fuck. I mean, you mentioned the bit where Lucy gets transformed into a vampire. That moment in particular proves that everyone in this film is far too down to fuck because she's got that the white face, the white dress. It was all created by a Japanese oh god, what is his name? Aiko Ishioka, costume designer from Japan. And in that sequence, she couldn't look any more vampire. I think you described her as looking a little bit like Lady Gaga. I'm not sure if you noticed, as soon as she put the move on anyone, this is right after her funeral, by the way, and everyone's just like, she's dead, but she's still down to fuck, so I might go for it. I'm like, come on, guys. Come on, you motherfuckers. Just give her 5 minutes. Even Van Helsing at the end of the film, when Mina, like he's like, Mina's turning into a vampire. She goes to put the moves on him, and Anthony Hopkins immediately falls at the first hurdle of horniness. It's
Hmm?
ridiculous. This is a horny ass film.
What What is the point as well? I said this film is boring and the structure is odd as fuck.
Mhm.
What is the point in Tom Waits or Tom Watts, wherever you want to say, it, as Renfield? What is that point? You can explain Renfield. He went there, fine. He's back now. I gotta send this lowly clerk, Parker, to go
Yeah.
and sort it out. It's fine. But you don't. I don't know if you need then the weird sanatorium shots of Renfield. He does
Well,
fuck all in
that's
there, really.
exactly what I was mentioning a moment ago, was that whole idea that it's so beholden to being a true literary adaptation, even though it does take liberties. Those are the sections where you're just like, you've got to have reference to Renfield because that's the reason that Keanu's going to
Yeah,
Dracula's castle.
yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I actually think, oh God, what's his name? The guy who plays him? I do
Tom
apologize.
Watts. Tom
Tom
Waits.
Watts. Tom Waits. I do actually think, despite the limited screen time, I think he might have created the kind of definitive interpretation of Renfield, and that's one of the things you can say about this whole film. It's become so kind of like
You,
aesthetically definitive when you
you
think
mean
of Dracula now.
you didn't like Nicholas Holt's version of Renfield?
No, well, I didn't mind that film, but it was a little bit disappointing ultimately. But when you combine that with the whole Richard E. Grant narrative, so you already mentioned that he's one of the suitors, but he's playing Dr. John Seward, and there's this whole kind of brief hint towards his drug addiction at the asylum, and it
Yeah.
just goes absolutely nowhere. And that is true of almost the entire second half of the film. So you get this kind of relatively slow build in this, really kind of luxuriating in its surroundings. And then all of a sudden, at the halfway point, it's almost as if Francis Ford Coppola has looked at the book and gone like, fuck, we've got an hour of screen time and 300 pages left. And it just puts its foot to the floor. And the rest of the film hardly makes a lick of sense, sadly. And the second half of this film, sadly, isn't great. I think when we were talking briefly before the podcast, I referred to this as the Die Hard with a Vengeance of horror movies. And it's not quite as pronounced as that, but if you listen back to our Die Hard with a Vengeance podcast, when you think of that film, really what you're thinking of is the first hour. You're thinking of when they're in the center of New York. And it's the same with this film. You're thinking of when they're at Dracula's castle. As soon as they leave Dracula's castle and the emphasis moves away from Gary Oldman, this movie drops off a cliff in the same way that Die Hard with a Vengeance really crumbles in the second half. And it's so disappointing because the first half is so good. And then the second half is such a disappointment. And it's still true now. It still looks good, but there's no escaping the fact that the second half is an absolute mess.
I mean, I don't think they paid much attention to the second half either. I'm a big fan of continuity errors, as you know, and as we go through, and I like to point some things out. The best continuity error in this entire film, and I don't even know when they cut it or if they just didn't bother doing a second take. Renfield bites, for argument's sake, Renfield bites Jack, the Dr. Jack Seward, on his right hand side. When they finally pull him away, he grabs his left hand side of his neck and runs away. I'm like, what was that about?
That's such a classic Rob thing. Of all the faults of this film, that's the one you pick out. You should have kept that for the section we have later, later on. But I mean, like you said, I'm usually willing to forgive most things, especially in the first half, because every time I might get upset, anything that happens on screen, I'm like, the cinematography by Michael Ballhaus is absolutely gorgeous. He did Goodfellas, The Fabulous Baker Boys, The Age of Innocence, blah, blah, blah. The score, which is absolutely fantastic. Not just the score, but I genuinely think this movie has some of the finest sound design of any movie I can think of by Wojciech Killer. Like, you think of every sequence with Vlad and Keanu. I don't know why I use one false name, one real name, but you know what I mean. And you just get those little audio cues in the background. It just makes everything feel so much more creepy because, of course, it's inherently stagey the way it's shot. Like, everything is shot on a soundstage, like it would have been in 1906 or whatever. And it could have been overly flamboyant to the point where it's no longer effective. But because of the score, because of the sound design, it's still creepy, even if it is ultimately quite funny. Like, it tiptoes that line between being genuinely creepy gothic horror and almost laughably ludicrous. But that's the brilliance of this film in many respects.
Talking about the first half of this film, the opening. Let's talk about the first quarter of the first half, as it were, because that opening is one of the best things I have seen in cinema.
Oh, the Vlad suit. Oh,
the Vlad suit is fantastic. I'm so upset we didn't get to see him full Vlad suit with the helmet. I've seen the helmet, like Gary Oldman or Francis Ford Coppola. I don't know which one. I think it's Coppola. Has it like on display in his winery or his wine cellar, which is random, but okay. Like the helmet is fantastic. The whole thing, it's just blood red. It looks absolutely great. You don't get to see much of it. But then the whole silhouette fight, or the whole silhouette war with the Turks, where he's just picking them up with pikes and he's doing that. You've got a fucking, why did I forget his name? Who played Van Helsing all of a sudden? Anthony Hopkins. I totally lost my mind then. Anthony Hopkins narration, like he's doing triple duty in this. He's narrating.
He does do triple.
Yeah, he's narrating, he's playing the priest at the beginning, and he's playing Van Helsing. It's like,
he plays. You don't see him,
captain,
but he's the captain of the Demeter as well.
The captain of the, okay,
is that four?
Triple duty. Well,
it's a bizarre choice. It's only Anthony Hopkins as well.
Who is he narrating? Was he narrating as Van Helsing, or was he narrating as a character?
I thought of it as three parts. So I think he's narrating as Van Helsing, and he plays Van Helsing. But then he definitely narrates as the captain of the Demeter. And that is without question him playing a Romanian priest at the start of the film.
And Winona Ryder's doing double duty because she's playing Elisabetta or whatever her name
Yeah,
is
but
at the
that's
beginning.
a different
But yeah,
beast. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, so but that whole thing, and then Gary Oldman or Dracula or Vlad or whatever you want to call it. I mean, Gary Oldman is always in his characters. You call him Vlad, that's probably he'll answer to it. But
Mhm.
the way he breaks down when he sees the note she's wrote, because the Turk, that what a fucking what a baller move for the Turks, by the way. They've lost, they've run away. They go, oh, by the way, your guy's dead, so he
I've got
commits
to be
suicide.
honest. I've got to have a word with Elizabeth on that one. Double check the veracity of any news flung through a window.
I,
If
I
I
mean,
get a
always double
note
check the sources. Yeah,
Yeah, if I get a note flung through my window and it's attached to a rock, I'm like, I'm not going to believe that out of hand. I'm going to double check this
yeah.
before I go throwing myself into the fucking sea. By the way, despite the fact that she jumped off the edge of the cliff into the sea, she made for a very beautiful corpse afterwards. A little bit
Yeah.
too beautiful, dare I say. Although I just have to say that it's going to sound a bit pervy. My God, Winona Ryder in this film.
Oh,
Jesus
she's great.
Christ.
Yeah, she is
She's so
great.
hot. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she's a fantastic actress as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah. She's
But
absolutely like
she's
look.
peak hotness.
I've already perved at the beginning. I can't do it again. We get one perv per film, so I'm
Oh
good.
no, 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 no. I don't even count it as perving. If you were doing a podcast on Bram Stoker's Dracula and you didn't mention Monica Bellucci's tits, then there's something wrong with you. And I don't care. That's not straight gay. That's an objective appreciation of beauty, as far as I'm concerned.
I think going from that to carrying on about the beginning is insane, but I
Yeah,
will
sorry.
try.
Yeah, let's go
I
for it.
will try. When he stabs the cross and then drinks the blood,
Awesome.
where did that is awesome? Where did that come from? It's like I renounce your God. That's fine. I'm
Mhm.
gonna stab the cross. Oh, okay. Now the cross is bleeding, so in my mind, I'm gonna drink the blood. And then,
There are a few references to The Shining in this where they
yeah,
really go into there's blood everywhere, you know?
and then 400 years later, okay, it's fine. He's an old dude. I never knew if that was hair or that kind of looked like Booby Head from Little Nicky at the beginning.
Well, it's one of those things. I'm sorry, you've got to admit, like he does have right at the end of that opening sequence, he has a roar of anguish. And apologies if I'm stepping on the facts here, but it's not actually his voice. They couldn't get him to
Yeah,
kind of commit to the guttural scream that Francis Ford Coppola required. So they got it's actually. Is it the Cramps frontman, Lux Interior? My
Lux
wife read
Interior,
that.
yeah, from the Cramps, yeah.
She read me that sentence. She goes, "Oh, that roar was by Cramps frontman Lux Interior." You just said fucking words then. I was like, I have no idea what any of that meant. I was like, oh, so the Cramps frontman. So the band is the Cramps,
Yeah,
and the lead singer is called Lux Interior. She's like, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's who did the scream. I'm like, okay, fair enough, absolutely fine. But very effective, very
yeah.
effective.
Right. So, but now again, I got to go back to the fact that I said the 400-year-old Vlad
Mhm.
looked like Booby Head from Little Nicky when he had that weird skin
Well, it
hair
was
thing.
clearly a nod to that, and it's
Yeah,
one
yeah,
of the aspects from this film, maybe more so than any other, where you look at it and you go, "This shouldn't work." This whole kind of like drag queen act thing he's got going in, like as well as Dracula. I'm not sure if he just refers to himself as D, doesn't he? But that aesthetic should not work. And for some reason, it has become so wonderfully iconic. And it's because it's attached to the performance. But like you said, it looks like he's got two hair boobs on his head. But it works. I don't know why. It just fucking does.
yeah.
But
No, it's
that's
only
true of so
like
much of like the
the
aesthetic. It's
whole
like,
thing. And
oh, sorry, go for it.
no, I'm saying the whole thing about him works. He's so creepy in the red suit with the pale skin. Like,
The
but
introduction is amazing. The
the
introduction
introduction is
is
fantastic, but the whole
fantastic.
explanation and Jonathan Harker is so willing to let a lot of things go.
So much.
So, like a lot of things happen. He's looked behind him and there's fire on the road. That should be my first fucking red flag. But
I got to
okay,
be honest with you. As soon, right, if I get out of a carriage in the middle of Transylvania, and by the way, I've been to Transylvania. Don't believe the hype. It's absolutely gorgeous, Transylvania.
yeah,
I actually went to Dracula's castle. It doesn't look like that, but it's a lovely place. But even there, if I get off a carriage and a gypsy just hands me a cross, I'm like, fuck this, dude. I am bouncing
yeah,
immediately.
yeah.
But that whole sequence where,
Sorry.
I'm
Before you
sorry,
go
go
in,
for it.
so yeah, so that should be my first red or second red flag. You're saying
Mhm.
because of the cross. That's fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dracula almost seems like he's floating all the time. The fact he just always appears like he was right behind him, but then not right behind him. He was
Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah.
doorway. And that weird, like it was so quick, but it was so. I don't even know if it was meant to be funny when he The other red flag should be the fact that the mirror smashed. The mirror
That's a
cracked
concern.
on its
That's
own.
definitely a
Yeah,
concern. Yeah, yeah.
and then he's taken the knife away from you. He's starting to shave you anyway.
Hmm.
Just a little bit of a cut. Okay, not good. Red flag again. But then he turns around and the way he licks the blood, and he must be so, I don't know, so craving this blood that he's willing to forget the taste of shaving cream whilst he's doing that.
Yeah, I was trying to think about that. I was like, what would have to be on a knife for me to just ignore the taste of shaving cream? Like, how good would the steak have to be before I'm just like, yeah, there was a little bit of shaving cream on it, but goddamn, the steak was amazing. He's very much into this. But it is weird, the whole Jonathan Harker performance, beyond the fact that Keanu's performance in and of itself is bizarre. The way he's written, like you say, he puts up with so much. And you just think, oh, well, is he just kind of completely, you know, like he's just not aware of it, of any of this, like it's all going on around him and he's just decided to blank it out. But then when he does have a mental breakdown out of the blue, he just kicks off. He does list all the things. He's like, oh, this happening. I think the thing that gets him are the singing wolves. What beautiful music they make. Beautiful music. And then he goes off on one. And then, of course, at that point, all bets are off. Dracula just crawls out the window and starts climbing down the wall in one of the more fantastic sequences in the movie. But yeah, it's like the design throughout, though, it's so ludicrously gothic. I mean, we're saying that the sequence when he's traveling to Transylvania on the train, I'm not sure if it reminded you of anything else. Specifically, it reminded me of Total Recall. There's something about the way it's shot and the red, because there's a train sequence in Total Recall when they arrive on Mars, and you see the train. I was just like, it's almost the exact same shot.
I was getting Indiana Jones vibes.
Oh,
Like when
yeah,
the train was
that
was like transposing with the map kind of stuff, and yeah, I was just getting Indiana Jones vibes from that.
I'm not sure if you noticed the fact that Dracula's castle is actually designed to look like Dracula sitting on a throne. I had never noticed it before until I watched it this time.
Yeah.
And of course, that seems insane. But I went to Albania this year, and there is a building.
Of course you did. Geography by Liam.
Well, there's a building in Tirana, and I didn't know before I went there. But you walk into like the main square in Albania, like really famous, Skanderberg Square. And one of the buildings, you're just like, wait a minute, that's a face. And it is built to look like the face of Skanderberg, the 15th century military leader, seen as like the hero of Albania. But they've built this fucking huge building, and it's like at a glance, it looks like a modern collection of flats. But then you look a little bit closer and you're just like, that's a dude's face. And when you get it on certain angles, it's unbelievably uncanny. I've never seen another building like it. And that's what it reminded me of was...
No, I just Googled it now. Holy shit. Yeah, I missed that.
It's
It looks
crazy,
like
right?
somebody sitting on. It looks like somebody sitting in an electric chair. If I'm honest with you, but
it does a little bit. It does a little bit.
but
I only noticed it. This, like, I've seen this film so many times, and this was the first time I noticed it. But to bring it back to your point, when he arrives at Dracula's castle, that whole sequence with the gothic ghostly carriage, I absolutely love. I mean, that is lifted directly from the book. It's very Souls-like, very Bloodborne. I love the rider, the fact that they look like they're traveling on the smoke. Everything about that is the kind of gothic horror that I absolutely adore.
another film that we've done where it looks like they're traveling on air and then all of a sudden on land. The Mouth of Madness was the same last week where they were just traveling for ages and then on land. Another one. I'm going to have no Rob takes at the end of this, and my Rob take is weird. But the other one with that carriage, at one point you see in it, and it's the wheel of the carriage is full on wood all the way around.
Yeah.
And then the next time you see it, it's got fucking holes in it.
See, I wonder with some of this stuff if they even noticed it and they were just like, in the name of almost old-fashioned movie making, we're just going to let some of it slide. You know, because it kind of gives it that tactile feeling almost. I suspect not, but I wouldn't put it beyond Francis Ford Coppola, who's an absolute psycho. And we've not really mentioned Francis Ford Coppola as a director. Like, the fact that he directed this film is almost quite a bizarre one. I mean, when you think of Francis Ford Coppola, most people almost immediately think of the Godfather trilogy, Apocalypse Now, The Conversation, perhaps. I always think of The Outsiders, for instance. But he has directed some strange films. The strangest of the bunch, Francis Ford Coppola inexplicably directed 1996's Jack. I'm not sure if you remember that film.
No, I do remember that film, and I wanted to bring that up. He went from this to Jack, and it's so funny. Yeah, it's insane because you think about it. Like, I know, the casting call goes out to Robin Williams. Oh, do you want to be in Francis Ford Coppola's new film? Oh, you mean the
Yeah,
guy that gave us fucking Godfather 1, 2, and possibly 3,
yeah.
and gave us Dracula from a couple of years ago? Yeah. What kind of dark thing? What am I going to do? You're going to be a 40-year-old, 10-year-old boy. What? Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
what you can
and
be.
it's also, but it's going
And
to
you're
be
gonna want to
mid. It's
fuck
going to
your
be the
teacher. You're gonna want to fuck your teacher Jennifer Lopez. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
no, it's going to be really. It was part of that whole Robin Williams like overly melodramatic kind of. He did
Yeah.
that. He did Patch Adams. He did in What Dreams Are Made. I think that was. I think that film was actually made with Akira
What
Kurosawa.
dreams may come, wasn't it?
What? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
it was just like a whole bunch of. And Bicentennial Man was another one, and it was all these kind of like overly like syrupy movies. And Jack was
Yeah.
one. Like Jack's not without his charms, but Jesus Christ, you would never guessed. I'd seen that film a couple of times actually. I would have never guessed in a million years. It's made by Francis Ford Coppola. The one that actually surprised me though, because I've never heard of it. In 2011, he made a movie called Twixt. Not Twix, the chocolate bar, Twix, but with a T at the end, with Val Kilmer in the leading role. And I have never ever heard of it. I take by the look on your face that you're looking it up and you've
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
heard of it either.
No, no, because yeah, you said Twixt, but I knew it as a different name.
Oh, maybe it is over here, but it's definitely
Uh,
referred to as Twixt on IMDb.
Betwixt Now and Sunrise. I knew it as.
I have no idea. I just saw Twixt.
Okay. Never seen it.
Oh,
It
fair
just
enough.
it never looked like my cup of tea. If I'm honest, but
Well, it's just a weird.
it was
I
one. There was
I'm
one that
sorry.
I remember seeing in the dying days of Blockbuster Video.
What's that?
Like
Oh, the
this
the
film,
actual
I
that
seen
movie.
it. Yeah,
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 yeah, fair enough. I
yeah.
assume you haven't. And if you really want to get an idea of like the highs and lows of Francis Ford Coppola as a director, just watch Megalopolis. I know a lot of people didn't go to see it. I love the fact that it exists. It's so massively ambitious and utterly batshit. Does it all work? Absolutely fucking not. But in terms of like a singular passion project, I don't think there's anything quite like it. But
How
it
about how about the fact he's uncredited as a director on Supernova?
is he really?
Yes, like that, like Supernova with who's it? James Spader, Angela Bassett, Robert
Mhm,
Foster,
mhm,
Lou
mhm.
Diamond Phillips. Yeah, uh, directors Walter Hill, Francis Ford Coppola, and Jack Shoulder.
There's some big names. Walter Hill as well. It's
Yeah,
like he didn't
yeah.
Walter Hill direct was it The Warriors? I think he directed. I know we've done a couple of his films
Gave
on
us
the podcast,
Warriors.
I think.
He gave us Streets of Fire. Walter Hill.
Streets of Fire, of course, of course.
Yeah,
A classic. Well,
and
another flawed classic, let's call it that.
uh, I think he gave us one of the Nicolas Cage ones. I want to say Con Air. I think he
I
gave us
Was
Con
that
Air.
him? I
I
don't think
think
it
that
was
was
Walter
Walter Hill.
Hill. I don't think. Oh, you might be right. Maybe you can check that. But when I'm rattling on about the second half of the film, so we've got to the castle. We've had all the interactions with Jonathan Harker, and he's run off to London. And the first kind of warning sign for me is the fact that you have the sequence with the Demeter. We mentioned that it's voiced over by Anthony Hopkins, and I love that part of the book, and it's just completely glossed over. Instead
Yeah.
of kind of lingering on what's going on the ship, it's bizarrely cut against, Lucy and Mina frolicking in the rain, the werewolf sequence with Lucy, Winona Ryder's admittedly amazing rack out in the rain, and just Sadie Frost just being maybe the most erotic character in, mainstream movie history. But I just would have liked to see more of that, although like there can be too much. Did you ever watch Voyage of the Demeter? It was
I
released.
haven't, but I was going to bring that up because what is basically a page or two in the book, I
Yeah,
think, and is 30 seconds here, is an entire film
yeah,
with David Dastmalchian
yeah. And
as the
honest,
captain. Yeah.
I remember seeing the trailer and I was like, that sounds like a fantastic idea. They actually did a whole episode of it in the BBC Dracula TV show. It's like a three-part special, which is surprising. If you've not watched it, the Dracula BBC version, I think it's either on Netflix or Disney Plus. It's definitely on
That
one of
had
those at
a,
the moment.
that had a good rap, and then the last episode where he just
It was
started,
bad.
yeah, because it was all like iPads, and Dracula has his own team of mercenaries or
Terrible.
whatever it was. Yeah,
Right,
people.
that's the
A
thing.
spoiler, so people that haven't seen it.
No,
Sorry.
no, no. It is worth warning people because it's a three-part special on BBC. Like I said, I think it's on. It's definitely on one of them. And the first two episodes are fantastic. The second episode is basically the story of the Demeter, and it's brilliant. And I thought Voyage of the Demeter was going to be right up my alley because the aesthetic looked cool. I liked the concept. And then you realize, oh, this is why it's only 2 pages in the book. It just does not work as a 2 hour movie, sadly. It's such a shame. It was one of the more disappointing movies of 2024. But
Sorry, my
for it.
apologies. Walter Hill did not give us Con Air. That was Simon West.
That's it. Yeah, that was
But
it.
what Walter Hill did give us in 1996 was a film that I can't believe we haven't covered yet, and we will.
Mhm.
Last Man Standing.
Yeah, it is. It is almost amazing that we've not covered that, especially considering I just assumed you would have chosen that by now. I remember liking that film. I know you're a lot fonder of it than. Well, I don't want to say
Yeah.
a lot fonder because I've only seen it once, and I remember liking it, but I've just never revisited it for whatever reason. So basically, I'm just waiting for you to pick it on the podcast. We
Oh,
will get round to it.
it'll get picked. It's on the list. Don't worry. It is on
Yeah.
the list. Is fucking massive, dude.
But anyway, when we arrive in London, then, and that is one of the changes from the book. They land in Carfax Abbey rather than Whitby in the book, which is a shame because if you go to Whitby, they've really leaned into obviously the whole vampire thing because famously in the book, Dracula lands in Whitby before
Yeah.
traveling down south to London. But you can see the emphasis there is on this version of Dracula. You hear the music all the time. You see that's kind of aesthetic, rather than it being kind of Bela Lugosi or what's his name? Oh my God, Lee, who played Saruman in Lord of the Rings.
Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee, the
Okay.
Hammer horror version of
Yeah.
Dracula. Those were. I think the reason for that is those versions, the kind of 1950s Hammer horror version of Dracula and the Bela Lugosi version, which is from the 30s, I think. Those have become like the fancy dress versions of Dracula to the point where it stopped being scary because people are like, oh, they think the big collar, the black and stuff. And that's why I think this was so effective and why that's being kind of incorporated into the aesthetic of Whitby, for instance. But I love the fact that, like you said, the third version of Vlad in this film is just him cutting about, dripping in swagoo, amazing glasses, wonderful cane, the top hat. You're like, my God, they handsome him up for that sequence.
Yeah. The whole thing as well. See, when he's basically sexually harassing her on the street as well. Like Winona Ryder, he's there,
She's
and
quite
then
mean
she
to him,
turns the
though.
corner, and he's there, and then he takes her to, or he follows her to the weird science museum thing, where again there's just a woman naked on screen, everyone's watching it. Okay,
Well,
great.
they're showing off the kind of magic of
Yeah.
the cinema, aren't they?
And then he rocks her into a corner, and he says that cheesy line, but it's the line that got him to do the film. I got it in facts, but it's that line about I crossed oceans of time to be with you or something like that. Like,
It's some romantic shit, and it's weird because obviously you can put some of it down to his vampire powers, or part of it is her remembering her past as Elizabetta and stuff. But when he first comes up to her, she's just flat out mean to him, and he's being pretty polite and he's very debonair and stuff. She then, rather than she's like, okay, I was quite mean to you, so what I'll do is basically then go on a date with you. That's how quickly that turns around. It's just like, okay, you can just be nice to him. You don't have to go to the fucking cinema with him. It's like that's not cool at all. But they have such great chemistry, and that whole sequence at the cinema, and you get so many sequences like this throughout the film. It's incredibly showy, but you've got the cinema sequence playing in the background. You've got the wolf cutting past in the foreground. It's all dripping with sexual iconography, and I mean, that could be an absolutely nothing scene. It's like, if you really want to know, there's a point in this movie where he's just showing off, and it's a little bit later, but it's between Vlad and Mina again. And it's a split diopter. For those who don't know, a split diopter is where you have two characters both shot in focus, even though they're in different parts of the set. So there's usually like a blurry line just down the middle. And, it's used to great effect in things like The Untouchables and stuff like that. But anyway, so he has a split diopter, which is an inherently showy shot anyway. But then in the middle of the split diopter, he's got a flashback sequence playing in the middle of the screen. I'm like, Francis Ford Coppola, sir, you are just... He's like, what else can we do now? We've done everything possible on screen. I know, we're going to do a split diopter with a flashback sequence shot in the middle of it. I've never seen its likes before.
I mean, he's pulling out his thick as a dick resume of films. Like, absolutely.
His thick as a dick resume. I've never heard that term before, but I'm glad you brought it into my life.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's pulled that out, and that's absolutely great. But then it's so disjointed, and the whiplash. Fucking hell, this is not a word, but I'm using it. The whiplashness of everything. Like, it goes from that to then all of a sudden this werewolf fucking Lucy to Lucy then picking her bride. So all of a sudden, fucking Carrie Elwes turns around and says, "Oh, I'm the one marrying her." Oh no, no, she's dying. Oh, let's do a blood transfusion. Oh no, we're
Yeah,
gonna.
it's a
Like,
lot.
I was so like
And Anthony
honestly,
Hopkins is
I
easy
felt
to
like I
forget.
needed to call like accident claims for you. To,
It's a lot, and Anthony Hopkins rolls in like a fucking steam train. His performance is massive. It's almost like he's seen the dailies with Gary Oldman and thought, I'm gonna have to really up my game here.
do you know what
And
I thought it was?
he goes a bit too big, I think.
I thought they were paying him by I don't know, paying him by the day or something like that because that guy he didn't take a breath and he didn't stop. Everything about Anthony Hopkins as Van Helsing was
Mhm.
we gotta move, we gotta move. It was like he was only on set for a day and had to go to another film because he didn't fucking breathe.
No, it's
As soon as he rocked up, he gives fucking Richard E. Grant this thing goes, "We need blood." Harry always comes to check on her. Oh, glad you're here. Sit down. We need your blood. We're not going to do a fucking blood test to make sure you're the right blood type. We're just going to
no,
jam a
no, they
needle.
don't do any of that. They just go for it immediately. Yeah, it's a big performance, and sadly, his arrival into the film does signal the downturn in quality. There's just no two ways about it. You still, like I said, get some absolutely amazing shots, and there are some fun bits, but as a movie, it just starts becoming messy, and I do associate it with his big, as you say, very busy performance. Um, I mean, at this point, though, and I think one thing it does, contrary to the book, is that it makes the character of Vlad Dracula, whatever you want to call him, much more sympathetic. And every so often with this film, I'm just like, God, I'm starting to side with Vlad, and especially when Mina, usually when he, later in the film, when he kind of reveals himself, like his monstrous side, and she sees him for what he is. Usually, that's the bit in the film where the woman runs away and she goes, "Oh, he's too monstrous," blah blah blah. She is a ride or die bitch. She sees that and she's like, "No, I'm still down to fuck." And by this point, you're just like, well, yeah, I'd run away from Jonathan Harker. Yeah, sure, he looks like Keanu Reeves, but he, like you mentioned at the top of the podcast, he suddenly has that ridiculous grey-haired wig, which just looks terrible. And
Yeah.
like they've got married out of the blue in Romania, which supposedly some people think means they're actually married because he was a real priest
Yeah.
presiding over that sequence. So some people like, we think Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves might actually be married in Romania, but that's besides the point. But all those moments are just so bang, 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 back to back. Not only is it hard to keep track of, the biggest crime is that it's really hard to care about any of it at that point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're still kind of just about hang, and I think that is the reason. By the time they get to, and I think you mentioned the whole Indiana Jones thing. The fact that there are like elements of this film which remind you of Indiana Jones
Yeah.
when they're racing ostensibly to Vlad's castle, and there's a sequence when they're trying to get to Bulgaria, I think it is. At that point, I remember thinking, I'm kind of on Team Vlad at this point because I just don't give a shit about the three husbands, Van Helsing, and sorry ass Keanu Reeves at this point.
Where did they get the spies as well? Our spies told us he's like by the time the fucking
What?
letter comes to you, he's already passed and gone on. Like, where did these spies come from that you've got tracking Vlad? It was
I don't
insane.
know. And well, Vlad's got his own spice, but that makes sense. I mean, he can turn tears into diamonds, apparently. I mean, that's
Yep.
pretty fucking baller. No wonder Mina left with him. But yeah, it's like you said, a real shame that and when we're talking, like, I kind of list off a bunch of things. This all happens over like the space of like 45 minutes. So it's not like it happens in 10 minutes, but it still feels really rushed at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Quite bizarre.
And everything everything about that felt in like mad. Like they were able to send their plan was to send Van Helsing and Mina as distractions so they could cut him off, but it just didn't feel that that was the I don't know. It just
No,
all of it was
it
so
never felt
disjointed.
it never felt like it made sense. And it all comes back to that. You mentioned it earlier in the podcast, actually, the scene at the bar slash restaurant with Mina, Keanu, and Van Helsing. And it should be just a kind of dialogue heavy scene where they're basically explaining the plan for the second part of the film. But it's one of the oddest sequences in the film. And of course, you're trying to get on board, and then you get Keanu delivers his lines, "I know where the bastard lives." And you're like, oh, fucking hell, Keanu, I forgot how bad your accent is in this film. And then it's just like, well, we've told you everything that's going to happen in the next 40 minutes. And now it's just on fucking double play for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the ending is quite effective, where she just chooses to go with Vlad Dracula, whatever you want to call him, and takes his life and cuts his head off. It's all very dramatic. But because everything leading up to that feels rushed, I'm never quite sure why it's happening. I'm like, when they say to us, like, oh no, let her go with Vlad, are they convinced that she's definitely going to kill him? I have no idea by this point. Like you said, it's a great point. Like, why have they separated? It's never really made clear.
And what does that, how does that change the marital status of Parker and Mina as well, of Jonathan and Mina? Like, she's gone off with him, and he's convinced that she's going to do the right thing, but nobody else is utterly convinced that that's going to happen. She cuts his head off, and it's like, okay, yeah, but you were actually infatuated with this guy, and now I've got to take you back to my marital bed. Like, it
Well,
seems.
that's the thing. There should have been a greater emphasis on the relationship between Harker and Mina in the second half of the film, and he can see her slipping away from him, and he's just like, I've just got to let her go. She's got this whole weird thing going on with Dracula. But instead, he just seems, considering they're so in love in the first half, she apparently just like, nah, fuck this guy. I'm totally into Vlad. And he is oddly cool about it. Like you said, in the first half, he's very chill about, Vlad being all Dracula-y and all this weird stuff going on. And in the second half, he's so passive about the fact that Mina is one, turning into a vampire and clearly in love with Dracula. And he's like, well, we'll just let it run its course, I suppose.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, by the way, why is my hair grey? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Was it too much sex with Monica Bellucci? I have no fucking idea. I mean, again,
Yeah.
if too much sex with Monica Bellucci turns your hair grey, I'm willing to bite that fucking bullet.
You cheated on me with one 400-year-old vampire, but I've spent like what 3 months just nailed to a bed with three brides. Like,
Oh yeah, they've
okay,
just been fun.
yeah.
And that's the other thing. You have the Brides of Dracula. It's like when Van Helsing shows up, he kills them with just zero effort. It's so unceremonious.
But again, the nonchalant way like, yeah, zero effort is fine, but then just chucks their fucking heads just off a bridge.
Yeah,
Why?
it's a shame because, as I said, this all sounds very negative, but I really do adore the first half of the movie, and then, but by the end, I'm kind of a little bit worn out and a little bit confused as to what's going on, and then all of a sudden, inexplicably, Annie Lennox is playing over the credits, and you're like,
Yeah.
what? I think the song's called "Love Song for a Vampire." I'm like, my God, that is so on the fucking nose. But this is the era of bizarre songs. There's, a couple of weeks ago we did Judge Dredd, and I had no idea The Cure did a song for the end credits. The big difference there is that song is an absolute belter. This one is not one of Annie Lennox's finest, sadly. But
No.
strange film.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add before we move on to favorite scene? Oh,
No,
I was going to say usually we do Rob take here, but you've done about 17 of them. So
I've still got one. I've still got one I say
Go
for
for
Rob
it.
takes.
So
Yeah.
Rob take, this is where Rob picks something innocuous that has ground Rob's gears. He's already said 3. He's got at least one more.
Yeah. When they're in the party and they're talking to, what was her name? Lucy, was it?
Lucy.
When the suitors are talking to her,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Billy Campbell, who is his name Quincy? Sorry, I didn't.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So Quincy's holding his hat,
Mm-hmm.
but no more than like 5 seconds later, Dr. Jack Seward gets up from where he was sitting
Mm-hmm.
and gives Quincy the hat he was sitting on.
Madness. This is amazing. This is like the first time you've seen this film. It's crazy. You didn't notice the castle, which is shaped like a
No.
dude, but you noticed
No.
the hat not being in his fucking
Yeah.
hands.
Yeah.
Can't, like, all these things, they totally pass me by. The reason this is called Rob Take is because Liam Take would just always be empty. Like, I hear, like, you see these movies where a movie I've grown up with, I've seen like 20, 30 times, and then suddenly there'll be this clip online where, oh, did you ever notice that this happened in the background? No, never. Like when directors say, like, especially historically, say, oh, don't worry about the inconsistencies in the background. Everyone's looking at this. My eye is always where the director wants my eyes to be. You, with your wandering fucking eyes, are often looking well off into the background. Going, no, the cunt's hat's not in his hands. This scene is bullshit. Unbelievable.
This might be why my mum, at 42 years of age, is still insistent that I have ADHD.
Maybe. Who knows? It'd be such a strange way to prove it. It's like, no, he notices weird shit in movies.
Yeah.
In terms of favorite scenes, I could pick a whole bunch from the opening sequence, from the first half. It's basically between Alban and Reeves when he finally breaks down. I mentioned the sequence with the wolves, and then he crawls down the wall. I absolutely love that. But I think my favorite sequence is actually the spooky gothic carriage. Going through the blue ring of fire, arriving at Dracula's castle. I love that sequence, so I'll go with that one.
For me, it's Vlad's transformation into Dracula. The whole renouncing God after his wife's death, stabbing the cross, drinking the blood. The whole like I don't know, was it the blood is the life and it shall be mine? The whole thing, and it's like a really good reimagining of how Dracula became. I say
I don't know.
reimagining. We don't really know how Dracula became Dracula, like as an overall thing.
It's
But
weird because
this
I've
thing,
actually
yeah,
read the book Bram Stoker's Dracula, but I've not read
yeah,
it for a long time. And I can remember very specifically, as I said, the scene with the carriage arriving at Dracula's castle. It's all very true to the book. I can't remember the very opening. I don't think that happens in the opening. I'm pretty sure it starts with Keanu's character, Jonathan Harker, at his firm, and they're talking about Renfield and basically making the plans to travel
yeah.
to visit Vlad in Transylvania. So I don't think that's part of the. It might be part of like later in the book, but I don't think it's the opening for sure.
The only other origin story of Dracula that I can recall from film
Mhm.
is Gerard Butler's in Dracula 2000, where he was Judas Iscariot, and
Fucking hell.
the reason why he doesn't like silver is because they paid him 30 pieces of silver to betray Jesus. That's
Wonderful.
and like sunlight because Jesus was on a cross in sunlight. That's the only.
No, 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 no. There was, and again, speaking of disappointing vampire movies, um, Dracula Untold, another Welshman in that film in this leading role. And I remember seeing the
Oh yeah,
aesthetic. I was like,
his origin, yeah, with
yeah.
the Turks and stuff. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was just like, oh, like the suit looked like a cross between the opening of this film and Castlevania. And I was like, oh, this film like looks right up my alley. And I watched it and it just wasn't very good.
No, it's
There are actually a lot of bad, because I was thinking like, where does this movie place in terms like because there's like almost two genres to my mind. There's like best vampire movie and then best Dracula movie. I don't think they're the same thing. So when I
no,
was
they're
thinking
not.
best vampire movies, I was thinking, 1922's Nosferatu, like, the aforementioned Chris Lee's Hammer horror film from 1958. The Lost Boys, Near Dark, Let the Right One In, Interview the Vampire, Fright Night, Blade, 2024's Nosferatu, funny enough, and Sinners, of course. I don't
No,
think
from Dusk
it's.
Till Dawn in that.
I like it. I don't. I'm not sure if I'd put it in the top 10. Maybe actually, I don't know. No, I'm.
I would. I would. I'd put it up there as a vampire film, one of the
No,
best.
I'd put it there. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
put it in order, but yeah, I think I'd make the argument that I'd put it in the top 10. Like, if you take like 1922's Nosferatu, that's incredibly iconic. Christopher Lee's Hammer horror one is iconic for a different reason. And I think this movie, for all its faults, actually belongs in the conversation, not at the top of the list, but because it's so iconic, belongs in the conversation. But I think it really belongs more in the conversation of best Dracula movies. So I mentioned like 1931's Dracula with Bela Lugosi and all that jazz. But I'm not saying for a second that this is better than The Lost Boys or Near Dark or even like maybe not even Fright Night, which I absolutely adore. But it's certainly in the conversation simply because it's become so iconic from a purely aesthetic perspective. It's kind of like I went to see Tron Ares this week. The,
Yeah.
the the story, it's not a mess by any stretch. It's just a little bit whatever, but aesthetically it's so impactful and so successful, and that's kind of what this film is. The narrative is fine, but on a purely aesthetic level it's borderline unmatched. But
I
sorry, I kind of
love.
went off on one then.
No, no, that's fine because it's going to lead into my tangent. Because I
Mhm.
love that's where you went. You looked at this vampire film and you went, "Oh, what weren't some of the other better vampire films?" Or not some of the like. How did this get me to my list and stuff? And the way your mind works is fantastic. The
Mhm.
way mine works is
Mhm.
like a monkey playing a fiddle, right? Because I thought of that, and I thought of Dracula 2000, and then I
Of
thought of,
course,
oh, I remember another film like Dracula 2000, Dracula 3000, right?
there's a Dracula 3000.
Yes, yes. Stars Casper
Fantastic.
Van Dien
Mhm.
and I can never remember say her name properly. We did her Erica Elianak from
Elianak, yeah,
Under
from
Siege. Yeah.
Baywatch
Okay.
and
Yeah.
Under Siege.
Yeah. And also starring Coolio. Right. Right.
Always a sign of quality. Yeah, go for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Dracula in space. So I thought, I
Fantastic.
wonder because we talked about like horror films and we've talked about off pod about like Friday the 13th and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And I thought, Jason X, Jason in space. And then I started thinking, oh fuck, how many films can we do with horror characters in space? And dude, Critters 4, they're in space.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, Dracula 3000. Uh, what was the one? Jason X, Leprechaun in space. Fucking Pinhead goes to space in Hellraiser. So there's five.
That's insane, man. Ah,
Yeah.
Jesus. I mean, that's like you said, how your brains work. Basically, your brain works like you remember that game, 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon?
Yeah.
That's how your brain works. It's like you say something and you go, "Oh, what's linked to that?" Dracula 3000. What's linked to that? Jason X. What's linked to that? Films in space. Yeah, our brains go off in different directions, but it
Yeah.
works for the podcast, I think, for sure. Have you already said your favorite scene? Sorry, I went off on such a big tangent there.
Yes, I did. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that
the
was
opening sequence. Yeah,
it
I
was
do
the opening
apologize.
sequence. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is an absolutely great shout. Basically, you pick almost anything from the first half. Brilliant. In terms of loves, unsurprisingly, I think it's going to be on both of our lists. Gary Oldman as maybe the most iconic, certainly relatively modern performance of Dracula. Like I
Yeah.
said, you can talk about Bela Lugosi and Christopher Lee and all that jazz, but I think nowadays when people think of Dracula, I think a lot of people think of Gary Oldman. Number two, the wonderful production design and cinematography throughout. And number three, I love how overblown and wonderfully gothic it all is. I know I mentioned earlier, Eggers' Nosferatu is also very gothic, but it's very self-serious by comparison. And
Yeah.
I enjoyed that film, but my idea of kind of like my favorite idea of kind of gothic horror is basically this. There's always an element of like it's just on the edge of being slightly silly. But
Okay.
yeah, this is right in my wheelhouse from an aesthetic perspective.
Oh,
Like you said, it's borderline a little bit silly at times, but it just about
yeah.
pulls it off. So those are my
Right.
list.
No worries. Mine are number one. I'm going to go with the. This is too big a word for me. The visual opulence and the practical effects.
I think opulence is the correct word
Yeah.
as far as this movie is
I mean,
concerned. Sorry, now I can't speak. Jesus Christ.
you mentioned it already, but Francis Ford Coppola's the commitment to the old school filmmaking, like you said, his thick of a dick repertoire of filmmaking is fantastic. The in-camera tricks, the forced perspective, multiple exposures, it gives that film like that dreamlike quality. I think it looks great as much of anything else. Gary Oldman's Dracula number two, like his portrayal of a tragic, romantic, terrifying, like not even villain. I wouldn't say anti-hero. I don't know, just character
Well, he is kind of a
so
villain,
good.
but as I said, like it is an empathetic kind of like telling of his character, and although saying that every time I'm just like, oh, I'm feeling quite a bit of empathy for Nosferatu, and then it cuts back to like Jonathan Harker in bed with Dracula's three wives. Well, there's like a mural of his wife on the ceiling. I'm just like,
Yeah.
dude, that's actually pretty gang. That might be the darkest thing he does in the whole film is making his three brides look at a mural at his ex-wife. It's like fucking hell.
And number three, and take this with a pinch of salt,
Mhm.
the faithful yet inventive adaptation of the source material. I haven't
Yeah, I
read the
think it's fair.
book, but I did look up the source material and like any
No,
changes or anything like that.
that is true. Yeah, yeah.
Like Coppola's version adds a romantic twist that we've already said. I'm not a huge fan of that. But as well as everything else, I think it's like the film honors the gothic tone and the themes of Bram Stoker's original work. Uh, Van Helsing and Renfield are given vivid, memorable interpretations that feel both classic but fresh as well.
Mhm.
If to a point, not in the right way, because they're two characters that I've mentioned that were a bit disjointed for me. Renfield,
Mhm.
because that whole thing in the sanatorium and he doesn't move from that.
It just doesn't get enough time to breathe. Like I said, his
Yeah,
performance
exactly.
is literally fantastic, but he just doesn't get anything to
Yeah.
do.
But then also, fucking Van Helsing seems to just be on crack, speed, and cocaine at the same time. Like,
Yeah, there's a
Jesus Christ,
lot.
dude, take a breath. Yeah. So they're my three loves anyway.
Yeah, it's weird actually that the fact that you mentioned, and obviously we mentioned the top podcast as well. The fact that the love story with Mina is kind of bolted on from like the Mummy, I think it was
Yeah.
directly. And when people think of the most kind of literal adaptations of the work, I think they think of Bram Stoker's Dracula is in the name, and they think of Nosferatu, Eggers one, and both
Yeah.
of those are obsessed with the love story. And and let's be clear, Vlad's or Dracula's obsession with Mina or with the kind of female lead of the film, it's is it Johnny Depp's daughter in Nosferatu, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Lily Rose
Lily
Depp,
Rose
isn't it?
Depp. She's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
good in that film.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a lot, but that whole film is a lot.
I mean, I feel
In,
for her. I say I feel for her. I'm glad she bounced back on her feet when her first acting credit was Yoga Hoses.
oh, Jesus Christ. I watched 10 minutes of that. I was like, nope, nope, fuck this. Absolutely horrible
Dude,
stuff.
I watched the whole thing.
Oh my God, you're a braver man than I. God, Kevin Smith made some absolute dogs, didn't he?
Yeah.
Hates number one. It's weird when I say Keanu is Jonathan Harker because it is a bad performance. It's also part of the reason that I enjoy rewatching this film because it's almost like an ironic rewatching where I'm just like,
It's
it,
watching Tommy Wiseau's The Room. It's
yeah,
it's fucking awful, but like it's like a car crash TV. It's
yeah,
like
but
you've
it's
got to keep
weird.
watching it.
Imagine Tommy Wiseau's The Room, but he's playing alongside fucking Marlon Brando. You're just like, I don't know what to think. It's so strange. And that's what gives this movie its kind of weird, surrealist edge. When you rewatch it, just like, I mentioned in the intro, I'm like, I'm still not sure if this movie's good or bad. And part of it is because even the bad bits, I still kind of enjoy. It's very strange. Number two, the second half is comparatively messy. And that is, for all my talk about liking some of the stuff which doesn't work in this film, I don't love the second half of this movie, if truth be told. And number three, some of the narrative strands taken from the book are underplayed. We mentioned it, Richard E. Grant as Doc Sarah, the whole Renfield in particular. I would have liked for their characters to have a bit more screen time, but in reality, because it doesn't go anywhere, you'd be better off just cutting them out of the movie and giving more time to their plan to kind of take down Dracula in the second half of the film. Because,
Yeah.
there's a really almost sweet sequence when Mina goes to visit Renfield and they have like a back and forth between, through the bars of his cell. It's actually quite an emotional sequence, but again, it doesn't fucking go anywhere. So it's a bit of a shame. I'm of the mindset, it's just like, if you're not going to do anything properly with them, just cut them from the film, especially Richard E. Grant. So
Yeah.
those are my hates anyway.
Yep, no problem. So mine again, Keanu Reeves' performance, mainly because I mean, aside from his British accent, and I love Keanu Reeves in the right films and the right Keanu Reeves
Yeah, yeah,
role,
yeah.
he felt out of his depth in this, and he has gone on record to say he probably took this on a bit too soon as well.
Yeah.
He's already done loads of films before this. There was no time to breathe or anything like that. And he
Mhm.
feels if he had time to think or breathe, he
It's the
might have
whole,
passed
yeah,
on
but
it. But yeah,
it's if you're a relatively young actor, and again, it's the whole, it's not just Francis Ford Coppola comes knocking, the director of The Godfather and Apocalypse Now comes
and soon
knocking.
to
When
be
you're,
Jack.
yeah, and soon to be Jack. But he, regardless of what, his films from the last 4 or 5 years, when you've got those on your CV and you come knock, and like you say, you're like early 20s actor, and Francis Ford Coppola is like, do you want to be in this movie? It's like, yes, I want to be in this movie.
Yeah,
But I agree with you, it probably came 4 or 5 years too early.
and I thought
But he was miscast too, so
yeah,
sorry.
because I thought as well his scenes. Speaking of miscast, his scenes with Winona Ryder, like and Gary Oldman, to be fair, they kind of lack the intensity and chemistry that the story is hinging on.
Mhm.
There's, yeah, I don't know. It just you feel out of it when you're watching Keanu Reeves' performance in this. Bless him. Number two, the uneven pacing and the narrative flow. The structure, whilst again faithful to the novel's format, it's just disjointed and slow in places,
Mhm.
and it makes it jarring. And I kind of didn't get emotionally invested in a lot of this film or any of this film really because of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we've
Yeah,
mentioned it a few times now. Like the ending just kind of comes and goes, is what it is.
yeah. And number three for me, the the melodrama and kind of over the top style. Especially, I've mentioned it a few times. I won't harp on it, but Anthony Hopkins Van Helsing, it's like the eccentric gusto that he's playing that it just takes us out of the film a little bit.
Well, yeah, that's the problem. Like I've mentioned the fact that this film is kind of like it's a balancing act, isn't it? Where you have this gothic horror, it's all slightly silly, but for like a lot of the film, it's successfully navigating this tightrope. But it only takes something to nudge it over the edge, and in this case, it's quite often Anthony Hopkins, and suddenly it all starts feeling a little bit silly and overblown. Of course, the first half is overblown as well, but it's kind of offset by the heavy gothic atmosphere and the aesthetic tricks. And then all of a sudden it gets nudged over, and the whole thing just starts to feel a little bit silly for a while. So yeah,
Yeah.
I totally get it. Any alternative titles for this film beyond Bram Stoker's Dracula? Feels like it'd be tricky, but sure.
No, we got a couple, so
Okay.
and only a couple to be fair. Hong Kong, 400 years of vampire zombie thriller.
What the fuck?
Yep, I'll say that again. 400 years of vampire zombie thriller.
I guess vampires are inherently quite zombie-esque. They are
Yep,
indeed the Walking Dead, but yeah, that's a hell of a title.
yep. India, Love Never Dies.
Oh, how very romantic.
Yeah, go down to the bottom here. Taiwan, Bloodsucker.
No, they've gone right the other way. Yeah.
Yeah. And Vietnam, Count Dracula. I just had to throw it in, but yeah,
Fair
it's just
enough. Fair
basically
enough.
Count Dracula.
Well,
That's all
I
it is,
think I
really.
think we know who wins this week. Well, I mean, we've already covered some of the facts, but do you have any others you'd like to bring up?
Yeah. So, Producer and director Francis Ford Coppola explains on the DVD commentary that Mina and Harker's wedding was a reshoot done at a Los Angeles Greek Orthodox church. They filmed the entire ceremony with a genuine Romanian Orthodox minister and realized afterwards that Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves may have really been married to each other, not in any legal sense, but under the eyes of God. As Ryder claims, Reeves has since confessed that he often gets text messages from Ryder that read, "Hello, husband," and that they are both completely fine with it.
He's another one where, like growing up, you always thought it's like, why isn't Keanu Reeves with like Sandra Bullock? If it didn't work out with Sandra Bullock, I like in reality, based on like character, I actually think he probably would have been a better fit for Winona Ryder. That's just one of those ones where if you found out they were married, you're like, yeah, I can get on board with that totally.
At the first cast meeting called by director Francis Ford Coppola, he got all of the principal actors and actresses to read the entire Bram Stoker novel out loud to get a feel for the story. According to Anthony Hopkins, it took 2 whole days to complete.
God damn it, man. Well, he does, as we found out with some of his previous films, you only have to look back at the history of Apocalypse Now to know that he doesn't do things by half, Francis Ford Coppola, that's for sure.
Gary Oldman hired a singing coach to help him lower his voice by an octave to help him give Dracula a more sinister quality.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. Gary Oldman and Winona Ryder did not get along well at all during filming, which shocked the rest of the cast because the two had become friends during rehearsals. They reportedly came back from a break in the schedule, seemingly hating each other all of a sudden, with no indication given then as to what had happened. Ryder later said that there was a danger whilst working with Oldman since she found his acting style too intense, which didn't sit well with Oldman. Although she is assured that they have long since made their peace, another source claimed that Ullman played a dirty practical joke on Ryder to elicit a surprise response from her, which she didn't appreciate.
Supposedly, and apologies if I'm stepping on a future fact,
No,
but the ending of the film is actually different to the originally. I think Mina was supposed to go off with Jonathan Harker as like as a happy ending, and test audiences hated it, so they had to bring them back to reshoot the final as you see it in the movie. And of course, they hated each other at this point, and they were just like, the only reason we could get Winona Ryder back was because it was to cut off Gary Oldman's head. That's how they sold it, and that was how they got her back in the door. And let's be clear, for what I suspect it was a far more successful finale.
Gary Oldman was drunk the night they filmed the scene where he had to lick blood from Keanu Reeves' straight razor. The scene was filmed after midnight, which added to the spirit of the scene and helped put the cast in the proper mood.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very erotic.
Coppola has openly criticized his own reasoning for casting Keanu Reeves as Jonathan Harker. According to him, he needed a young, hot star that would connect with the female filmgoers.
Yeah, it's a weird casting choice, but it is what it is.
The battle scene in the prologue was originally intended to be performed with shadow puppets instead of actors. The idea was used later in this movie when we see in the cinema house a shadow puppet battle similar to the prologue battle.
Very nice.
Yeah. Liam Neeson was considered for and very much wanted the role of Abraham Van Helsing, but after Anthony Hopkins, still riding the success of Silence of the Lambs, showed interest in the role, Neeson was ultimately turned down. Fuck you, Neeson. We got Hopkins.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like Hopkins, well, it's easy to forget that Hopkins wasn't actually a massive star before Silence of the Lambs, but of course, he rolls up, he's on screen for like 16 minutes or whatever it is, maybe even less than that, wins the Oscar for Best Actor, not even Best Supporting Actor, and yeah, he was shit hot from that point
on. Okay, I don't want to. There's loads on here, so I just want to.
Yeah.
Oh, Anthony Hopkins also plays Cesar, the priest who tells Dracula that Elizabeth's soul is damned, and he provides the voiceover sequence during the narrative for the Captain and the Demeter. We said that already. It's just insane.
Yeah.
Red jelly was used for the blood.
Oh, fair enough. That's nice at least, because quite often when you read these kind of oral histories of movies and you get these psycho directors like, oh, what did you use for like the blood and guts? Oh, we used blood and guts. We went to like a fucking farm and we had like from dead horses and all kinds of weird shit. At least here is jelly. That's quite nice.
Steve Buscemi was the first choice to play Renfield, but he turned it down.
I can totally see that.
Yeah,
I don't think it really matters as I said, but yeah.
Do you know what? There's loads. Dude. I'm just going to leave it there. We could go on forever. We could do a whole podcast on just the facts for this.
Yeah, film. I suspect there would be for this film. All right, so Hug to the Future. So remake, sequel, Let It Die, Leave Well Alone. It's so easy. Just leave well alone. I mean, there's obviously going to be numerous other takes on the source material, but in terms of this interpretation of the source material, it's so unique and it's so linked almost exclusively to Gary Oldman in particular. You have to leave it well alone. But of course, that comes with a caveat. There's no way the story of Dracula is ever going to be left alone. So there are going to be other interpretations, but this will, I think, forever remain a unique cinematic beast, if nothing else.
Yeah, pretty much just leave it be. I wouldn't say let it die. I'm not as into it as you are, which will be evident by my score at the end because I don't think we're going to match on this one if I'm honest. But I would say leave it alone. It is definitely something that needs to be watched, but I wouldn't say try and remake this film. This film in
Yeah.
particular, don't remake this. Don't sequel this or anything like that. Just leave it alone. I mean, we've already said Dracula is fucking hell. He's been used more than a hooker, a $2 hooker. Like, but
Yeah, like they were not short of adaptations of of Dracula, or like we said, there is the whole different thing between Dracula and vampire stories, of course, but there is still plenty of very specifically Dracula narratives, and like you said, this is one of the more iconic ones. But yes, leave well alone. I think we can
yeah.
agree on that. In terms of making a change, just where we could make one change to make the movie better, for me, it'd be easy to pick on Keanu Reeves here, but I don't think he's fundamentally the problem with the movie. It's the second half pacing, without question.
What did you say? It'd be easy to pick on Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, which you're going to, obviously, based on the look on your
Yeah.
face.
Recast Jonathan Harker with a stronger, more era appropriate actor. Like,
I don't
I
think
don't
that
know.
saves the film. I don't think
No,
that saves the second half. So
I don't know. Well, because like I said, the romantic triangle could be more compelling and believing because they didn't have any chemistry. The theatrical tone, it could be like with grounded emotions. I don't know. Yeah, and
I
again,
get
I
it.
will caveat it with I love Keanu Reeves, but
Mhm.
he was so out of place in this film.
And the thing is, as well, this is my opinion is coming from a place of like I've seen this film so many times. I grew up with this film, and the whole Keanu Reeves performance, it becomes a different thing when you watch it for the fourth or fifth time. But of course, this is the first time you've watched it, so I totally
Yeah,
understand that.
yeah.
In terms of video games, unbelievably, there were tons of video games based on this movie all around the same time, but there were platformers made for the Game Boy, the NES, the SNES, the Amiga, the Mega Drive. There was a beat 'em up version of this for the Sega CD, all by numerous developers, as was the way of video game development in the early 90s. There was Psygnosis, Traveler's Tales, Probe Software. All versions were bang average at best. But yeah, there surprisingly there are like 16 different versions of this game, which is very
Yeah.
strange. Well, no, it's not strange because it was the early 90s. If you're going to make one now, the obvious one, I think, is Konami and Castlevania, especially for Castlevania, because
I
it's
knew
been
you were
so
going to say
long since we've had
Castlevania.
a new Castlevania game. But rather than just saying Castlevania, I would actually go very specifically for the Mercury Steam 3D God of War likes that were released in like the early 2010s. I'm not sure if you remember them. They're called Lords of Shadow, and they were released
No,
on
I
the
don't.
PlayStation 3 and the 360. I'm surprised
Oh,
actually because
sorry. Yeah, no. Were they the ones voiced by Robert Carlyle?
they
Wasn't
were
he?
indeed, yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. I played the first one. I didn't play any of the others.
The second one wasn't very good. And there was a
Okay.
spin-off for the 3DS, I think, which was also rubbish. So really what I'm talking about is the first one, Lords of Shadow,
Yeah.
which was, when I say God of War, I'm talking about the original God of Wars, not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
PS4, PS5 version. But that aesthetic was clearly inspired, well, to an extent, by Castlevania in the earlier games. You can see it was inspired also by this movie specifically. So yeah, maybe like your favorite sequence of the film, the opening, you could do like a prequel where you play
Yeah.
Vlad in that world before he becomes Dracula, perhaps. But yeah, I'll go with the Mercury Steam version of Castlevania.
I mean, to pinpoint into that one, I think you win on this one because I kind of knew you were going to go Castlevania. So usually we don't. Lately, we've been matching on the games that we've
Mm-hmm.
picked. So I thought if you're going to go Castlevania, I'll see if I can come up with something else. And
Yeah.
actually, because of the Victorian horror aesthetic and the twisted romance between and film's tone, I kind of went with From Software's Bloodborne. I thought that would be
Oh yeah,
quite good.
yeah. Well, that's
Yeah,
I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, where
yeah,
specifically around the carriage ride, the carriage driver, carriage whatever you want to call him. He
yeah,
literally looks like the lead from Bloodborne. He looks like he was
yeah.
lifted directly from that game, even though this came first. So yeah, Bloodborne would be a great shout. But I would just love Bloodborne to just be brought back with a decent frame rate. That game is absolutely amazing. It's just one of my favorite games of the
Yeah,
PS3
yeah.
era. But you can't
I
play
had
it in
trouble
any
with
kind
it.
of
I had
decent.
trouble with that game because I kept
Well,
fucking dying.
well, that is the thing with those games.
Yeah,
You kind of have to get on board, with any Souls like you just get your ass whooped until you get to grips with it. And then when you get to grips with it and then you get your ass whipped again. And it was the reason I never finished Bloodborne. I absolutely adored that game, but it happens with nearly every Souls like game that I play. I really enjoy it. and then I just get killed at the like when you're in the wrong mood. And
Yeah.
I die for like the second, third time against a boss. I'm like, fuck this, and I just quit the game. And it's weird. Sometimes I've quit like quite happily on like the final boss. I remember like
Yeah.
Sekiro. I got to the final boss. I did it once, and I was just like, do you know what? I've really enjoyed this game. I do not want to smash my head against a wall for 2.5 hours trying to beat this boss. And I just quit quite happily with fond memories. But yeah, Bloodborne, it happened about 3/4 of the way through the game. I just run into a boss. I wasn't in the mood. And the problem with those games in particular, if you walk away, going back to it is fucking brutal. It's the same
Yeah,
with
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
Elden Ring. I tried to go back to Elden Ring. I'd say I was literally like 90% through that game. I was like, I should really go back and finish it. Suddenly I'm plonked into like the end game and I just got decimated. And I was like, no, no, fuck this. I'm walking away. But yes, Bloodborne's a great chat,
Yeah.
actually. So best and worst of IMDb. So this is where we take a random 10-star and 1-star review of this movie. But before we do that, I try and guess how many written reviews there are. I reckon there's tons of this film.
Whatever you're thinking about, double it.
All right. What was I? Okay. Well, I was thinking 450. So that's a lot. I'm going to go for nine. No, I'm not going to go for 900. That's too many. I'm going to cut it down a little bit. So I'm going to go 700.
I would have stuck with your first answer.
Oh, really?
965 reviews.
Oh, fucking hell, man.
Yeah, that's what I say. Whatever
that's the
you're
most
thinking
we've
about,
had, for sure.
double it. I know. I think there was a random one that had over
Oh,
1,000.
There
Yeah,
was, wasn't there? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But that is
But
one
that,
of the higher ones in fairness. But
yeah,
I
yeah,
can see why this might elicit quite strong reactions either way.
yeah.
In terms
10
of 10
stars.
star,
Yeah.
how can there be
Whatever
a
you're
lot?
thinking, double it.
Yeah, I think there'll be loads. Out of 900, 162.
Oh, dude, 191.
Oof, that's a good
Yeah,
effort. I'm pretty
yeah.
pleased with that. That's a lot, man. But
I
people
know.
love this film.
Wow, written. I don't usually give the date. I just say like written to 2024, but written on December 27, like Christmas. He thought, you know what, I want to watch.
I love it. I love the idea of that kind of post-Christmas, do something gothic and strange. Let's
Yeah.
go for it. Sure.
Right. So titled Still Amazing in 2024. Now, with the new Nosferatu movie, I will say this. This movie is still amazing. And the comparison I make is because a lot of things are the same but different. Both movies are great, but for me, this one is the better. The music, the story, better told. Nosferatu is darker and more gothic. You also get this thing in Bram Stoker's Dracula, but less than in Nosferatu. Not in a bad way. For me, the storytelling of Bram Stoker's Dracula is better and you get more connected with the characters. The cast is amazing. The backgrounds and clothing, the music, and so on. More vampires are also in this movie. It's an amazing movie from its time, and for me, it's a masterpiece and also nostalgia, of course. I mean, more vampires makes for a better film.
You've done well there. You've obviously become accustomed to read these reviews because that was almost autistic the way that was written, and you got through it like a fucking pro. So congratulations. I mean, I agree with a lot of it, not necessarily the way he put it. There were more vampires, but yeah, it's a great film. Like you said, Nosferatu's a more not convincing. What's the word? Consistent movie, without question. I would prefer this. I think this is a much more fun movie to watch, despite its myriad of faults. But in terms of ones, I don't think there'll be as many, but there's still going to be a lot of people who just don't get on with this. 47.
Oh, 73.
Oof. See,
Yeah, no.
again, that's quite a few.
It's high.
But
It's high.
it's one of those movies where I can imagine a lot of people are going to fall one end of the spectrum or the other, you know?
So this was written in 2006, titled Awful Adaptation of the Book. I saw Bram Stoker's Dracula last year without having any knowledge whatsoever of the book. As I watched it, I was almost certain that it was an inaccurate representation, as there is so much vile nudity and violence that it seemed to be a glimpse into Coppola's disgusting, misogynistic brain rather than a 19th century classic. I've just finished the book, and I would like to proudly say I am correct. Although the book subverts women entirely and paints them as weak, timid creatures that need to be protected by men, they are at least far from wanton, except, of course, for the siren-like vampires. Lucy's character is completely corrupted from what Stoker intended her to be, and never in the book does Mina even have the slightest desire to become a vampire. There is no love between Dracula and Mina, and this is absolutely crucial to the story. This does not add a cool twist, nor make the story any more interesting. It portrays the original Victorian notions that are embedded into the story and turns it into a gratuitous, abhorrent representation of modern Hollywood. Dracula is the embodiment of pure evil. He abhors life, purity, goodness, and wishes to gather as many that he can to fucking hell. He wishes to gather as many that he can to join in his evil existence and do his bidding. The love in this story comes from Van Helsing, Dr. Seward, and most of all, the love between Jonathan and Mina. The ending of the book captures this beautifully, yet this horrid film, no pun intended, fails to graciously offer its audience a glimpse into what this story is about. Now, I may have lost my funny bone because I don't understand horrid film, no pun intended. Like, where's the joke in that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it's so often the case with these one-star reviews. They come with clear personal baggage. It's
Yeah,
just so fucking clear. I mean, obviously, a big part of that is he's very, tied to the book, and you know what people get like when they're fans of books. It's like, oh my God, they've changed one little thing. This obviously changed a lot. People get a fucking, be in their bonnet about it. It's like, get over yourself. This film has issues. Yeah, sure. The whole relationship, as you mentioned numerous times, between Harker and Mina in particular kind of falls a little bit flat, but I don't think that means this is a one-star film. Just for the aesthetics and the production design alone, you've got to at least give it another couple of stars, but hey ho, each their own, which leads us to our own ratings and recommendations. Now, this is going to be interesting because yeah, we've agreed on a lot of things when it comes to this
yeah.
film, but I suspect our reviews might be in a quite different place. And that might be down simply to the fact that I've seen this movie so many times and I'm willing to overlook its faults. But I mentioned the whole Die Hard thing. I said with Died with a Vengeance, the first hour is a 5-star movie. The second half is a 3-star movie. It Falls is a 4-star film. This, I think it might be the same. The problem is, I think the first, the section of Dracula's Castle is borderline 5 stars for me. I know Keanu's not great in it. I love it regardless. The production design, which I mentioned just then, is absolutely gorgeous. The problem is the second half is a mess. And it kind of tiptoes down towards like maybe even a 2. So I'm stuck somewhere between a 3 and a 4. I want to give it a 7 or I want to give it a 3.5. But I'm going to say 4 simply because it's so iconic. But I will totally understand if you go in the absolute opposite direction on this one. Oh,
So
and by the way, yes, by the way, sorry, a 4, and absolutely I'd recommend this movie.
I mean, I'm not gonna give this a 1 or anything. I
Mhm,
still enjoyed the film. I've already said there was good parts about it.
mhm,
It is the middlest of middles for me. It is 2.5.
mhm,
I can't give it any more than that. It's a 2.5 film. The things that let it down really let it down. But the things that
mhm.
build it up. So it is just so smack dab in the middle of what I would give it. So 2.5 for me. But I don't
And I
think
think that sums up exactly what I said at the start. Remember, I said like this film, for as much as I love it, it's almost hard to be objective about it. So we've spoken about this film for nearly an hour and a half now. We agreed on almost everything, and at the end of it, we come up with completely different scores because it's such a strange movie and it's so
yeah.
hard to judge critically. I think. Sorry, you're going to say whether you recommend it. My apologies.
That's okay. I don't think I would recommend it if I'm honest with you. It's just I don't know this for me personally, but we already know how my brain works compared to yours. I think there's better vampire movies out. Vampire movies, not Dracula movies.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
better vampire movies out there. For me personally, it's not one that I would hold. If somebody said, "Should I watch Dracula?" I'd probably say give it a miss. But that's coming from me personally. I don't think
See,
it's
when you
one to be
talk about
recommended.
the vampire, the reason I would recommend this is because it's so unique, and a big part of it is basically the film nerd in me is how it looks. I mentioned the top, like they really, that saying they don't make him like this anymore kind of gets bandied about. They really don't make him like this anymore. Like nobody makes movies like this anymore. There's a
No,
reason
you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Francis Ford Coppola is taking it very much to heart. Like you said, there's hardly any post production on the visual effects. I don't think anyone else is putting this amount of effort to make it look like an old school film and to give it that timeless nature. So from a purely aesthetic perspective, almost exclusively just for Gary Oldman's performance, I would tell people with that caveat, it's like it doesn't all work, but it's still worth watching. I think, I would almost be like, listen, definitely go and watch Lost Boys, go watch Near Dark. But if you want something old fashioned, a very different take on the character, then go and watch this as well. But yeah, as I said, 4 and a yes for me, but it could just as easily have been a 2 and a no. It's that kind of movie. Next week is the third and final part of our October season of Halloween podcast. And it's your choice, sir. What are we going for?
We are going completely left field. We are going
Dracula
shit.
3000.
I really want us to do so. I don't even know if I could subject us to a season of in space movies, horror in space, but at
I was
some
thinking
point,
like maybe kind of like alternative vampire movie. Like, part of me wants to do John Carpenter's vampires now. I
Yeah,
really do
yeah,
want to
yeah,
rewatch
yeah.
that film, but we need to kind of make. Maybe we'll just pick that one randomly. Who
The
knows?
part of me wants to watch Leprechaun in Space again, by the way, because I've seen it
Again, my
again.
God. I watched the first Leprechaun for this podcast. It was okay. It's enough Leprechaun for me. I can tell you that much.
Hellraiser and like I want to watch all that, but sorry. Anyway,
Anyway.
uh, this is Batchet. This was a recommendation or a request, so I will
Mhm.
put that out there. I have seen this film once before. I am looking forward to
Mhm.
rewatching it. The year is 1988.
Okay, I'm gonna need more than that.
Directed by Stephen Chiodo. You'd be forgiven if you don't know who that gentleman is. You're okay.
Chiodo. That
Yeah.
name oddly rings a bell. Can you name any of his other movies, just out of interest?
I can't name any of the ones he's directed that haven't been a short, but I can name
Okay.
the ones where he is a special effects
Oh, okay, maybe I'm thinking
supervisor.
of someone else. That's
Or
probably not going to
yeah,
help
I
then.
think you're thinking of the guy Mike Chioda. Is it from Lincoln Park?
No, no, I'm definitely not thinking of him. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to need something else. Who
Yeah,
stars in this film?
I can't kiss Grant Kramer, John Allen Nelson, Susanna Snyder, John Vernon. Any of these helping?
I gotta be honest, sometimes when you're reading out these lists and you say the year, the director, and the name, I can imagine people listening and screaming, like, how is he not getting this? I feel pretty good about this one. I don't know any of the names you just said, other than the only thing that can possibly help is 1988, and it's just not enough information, so you just got to tell me.
Yeah. Uh, I, yeah, should we say the spaceship looks like a circus tent?
Oh, Killer
I don't know
Clowns
if
from
that's
Outer
good.
Space.
There it is.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's it's the only film it could be. That is a great shout because that's on Amazon Prime at the moment.
Yeah,
And similar to yourself, I've only seen this movie once. I saw it when I was a kid. I remember quite
yeah.
liking it. I was of the mindset that that film is just like silly junk that I watched in the 80s. Bizarrely, I was speaking to my friend about it a few months ago, and we looked it up on IMDb. I can't remember the specific score. It has
6.2.
some, yeah, but the Rotten Tomato score as well was because you get this occasionally where people have a soft spot for the film. It has like a 6 point something on IMDb, but the Rotten Tomato score is like fucking 7% or something, like
Yeah.
Soldier, for instance. But this, I'm pretty sure the Rotten Tomato score was surprisingly high on this.
I'm just looking now.
If you have a look. But anyway, if you get the opportunity, as I said, it's on Amazon Prime. I remember it being absolutely bonkers. It's bizarrely lived on in the public consciousness to one degree or another. There was a video game which I played based on.
But that was released like a year or two ago.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
it's not. Yeah.
Well, supposedly they're still on about making the sequel. I'm not sure if it's with
So
the original director, but it was definitely talked about.
79% on the tomato meter.
Fuck, that's super high.
Yeah.
17. I thought if like I said, I really can't remember a great deal of what happens in this film, but I thought it was going to be one of those, listen, it's a piece of shit, but it's a fun concept, 15, 16% Rotten Tomato. Nearly everyone gave this a positive review. So I'm genuinely interested to go back.
I'm looking forward to rewatching it because again, can't remember much. I remember the circus tent spaceship, and I remember the weird ways they would kill people, like turning somebody into popcorn or something like
I think
honestly
one
insane.
of them punched a dude's head off. That's one of the things I
Yes,
remember.
yeah,
One of the clowns.
yeah.
I mean,
And
in fairness, you were right though. You literally, in terms of if you're staying in the same genre, and at one end of the spectrum, you've got Bram Stoker's Dracula, and you went, what's at the very other end of the spectrum? It might actually be Killer Clowns from fucking Outer Space, in fairness.
I wonder as well if this gives us one of the best, I say superhero, one of the best hero names in films ever. Like you got John McClane,
Yeah.
Mike Tobacco.
That is a pretty fucking dope name, in fairness. I mean, if he doesn't smoke, I mean, that's got to be a
No.
case of nominative determinism, surely. He doesn't
Mike
smoke.
Tobacco. No, I don't. I can't remember if he does or doesn't. I don't know.
We'll find out next week.
Yeah.
So yeah, please do find out with us. Like I said, if you get the opportunity, it's on Amazon Prime. I think it'll be a really fun watch. I'll be surprised if it's on longer than like 87 minutes. I'm not sure if you have that information in front of you. That feels like the kind of
Just a
length for this
runtime.
kind of film. But I'll probably be like 2.5 hours now. We're like, what the fuck?
Can you imagine the director's
The
cut?
2.5 hour cut of Killer Clowns from Outer Space, because this kind of falls under the same category as maybe I don't want to say the first Critters film because that took itself quite seriously, but certainly the sequels.
How many minutes did you say?
87.
Fuck, 88.
But I do, dude, all these movies, all these high concept horror movies from the 80s were nearly all 87 minutes long or something around there. It's just a bizarre, like they always just said, listen, we're not letting this go 90 minutes. So it's just like 88 minutes. Really strange.
Yeah.
The only one which was we did a film not long ago, which was amazingly short. What was the fucking one? We did it for the podcast.
It was 79 minutes, wasn't it? What?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
so. Oh, was it? It wasn't Big Trouble in Little Big Showdown in Little Tokyo, was it?
Showdown Little Tokyo, 77 minutes or 78.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
just like when I saw it, I was like, that has to be a mistake. There's no way this movie is 70 something minutes long. Like every movie has to be at least 85 minutes. Like, you know, which you think is weird when I'm like, well, this film's only 88 minutes, but it seems to be a rule. You have to get over 85 minutes. But yeah, for some reason, Showdown Little Tokyo, 77 minutes. Crazy.
Dude, the guy that voiced Mike, the guy that plays Mike Tobacco came back for the game.
Awesome. Well, the game is incredibly true to the source
Oh,
material.
he was the guy that made fucking Nicolas Cage clean out his Five Nights at Freddy's-esque bar in Willy's Wonderland.
I never saw that film.
Oh, dude.
I know.
It's an interesting
is that
film.
where he plays like a mute?
Well, yeah, he just doesn't,
He doesn't
talk.
talk
and
much.
He drinks like a lot of Red Bull.
So
And
is it kind of like Five Nights at Freddy's then?
pretty much, basically, he's hired. No, he's not hired. He has a car crash or something like that, and he gets arrested. And to pay off his debt, he has to clean Willy's Wonderland.
Okay, yeah.
So he cleans it, stops to fight an animatronic, goes
Mhm.
back to cleaning, stops to fight an animatronic, goes back to cleaning.
Sounds very Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, exactly. But then obviously you got to introduce all the teenagers for somebody to get killed because Nicolas Cage can't get
Of
killed.
course.
I had a good time with that 5.5-star rated film.
It sounds quite fun. I am a big
Yeah.
fan of Nicolas Cage. I did actually try Five Nights at Freddy's just out of sheer interest because the whole series kind of snuck up on me because I never had any interest in it, and to the point where I would almost borderline ignore its existence because
Yeah.
it was a really popular video game, and I'm pretty into video games. I try and keep on top of current releases, and all of a sudden it was on like Five Nights at Freddy's 4, and then I started noticing these crossovers, and then the movie did massive numbers, and I was just like, I just didn't know it was that popular. So I was like, eventually, I'm like, all right, let's see what the big deal is. I'll watch the film. Did not care for it at all.
The second one is out like next month.
Yeah. And I will not be watching it. I've had my.
No.
I watched one of the movies. I'm like, that's fine.
Watch Willy's Wonderland. You'll have more fun.
I would much prefer that. In fairness, if you said Five Nights at Freddy's 2 had Keanu Reeves, well, Keanu Reeves would help, but it had Nicolas Cage in it, I'd be on board. And like you said, just watch Willy's Wonderland. So yeah, we're ending our Bram Stoker's Dracula episode talking about Willy's Wonderland, but that's just the way of things on the Hey You Guys podcast. Any other business before we wrap this up?
No, mate, we've been talking for quite a while, so I think we'll end it there today.
Fair enough. Just a reminder, if you've come this far, do leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice if you get the chance. That really would be massively appreciated. It does help our podcast, all that bullshit. But I've been Liam, he's been Rob, and you've been listening to the Hey Guys podcast. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Oh, and before I forget, where can folk reach us if they were so inclined to?
Well, you can actually reach us on Hey You Guys 80s at Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But if you want to send us a mail, do heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Send us in your recommendations. Send us in your thoughts about any of the episodes. Just literally talk to us. We'll have a one-sided talk with you on the podcast.
Yeah. We're nice folk. Get in touch. But no, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Hey, you guys!